This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
Hey, this is Erin with Cornell Studio Supply, located in the Gem City of Dayton, Ohio. As a proud sponsor of this episode and the Brickyard Network, we are happy to help you with all your pottery and ceramic sculpture needs by providing the best customer service and world-class workshops. Visit CornellStudioSupply.com for 20% off the largest ceramic book selection of all time. At Cornell Studio Supply, we are owned and operated for potters by potters.
Hola, it's Rose. I wanted to give you a quick update on what the Ceramic Materials Workshop team has been working on in the workshop. If you haven't heard yet, we started translating our popular online courses into other languages, starting with Spanish. Over the next year, all our courses will be available in Spanish, but right now you can jump right in and start with the middle glazes or self-guided crystal ball. To find out more, head on over to ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com. Hasta luego! We hope to see you soon!
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Well, hello, Matt and Rose.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello. As you know, we're here for another episode of Fluxed Up, our segment where we talk to makers about what they do and how they suffer, because one thing is true in ceramics: no matter how good you are, how much experience you have, we have all fluxed up something in our studio. Today, we are thrilled to have the amazing maker, Susan Feagin, partially from Penland, North Carolina, where she is the clay manager at the Penland School of Crafts, and solo artist in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Welcome, Susan.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks. What an honor.
Don't speak too quickly.
Give us some time.
We'll fail you.
Well, I mean, we're so thrilled to have you because it was pretty wild when we tried to have you on the first time, and we were checking in with you prior to the taping, and you were talking about the wind and the trees swaying, and little did we know.
It was that week. We were supposed to record
that day.
Yeah,
Right.
it was that
Right,
it was that
right.
morning. And Kathy, you were the last person I texted before I had no cell service for like 3 weeks.
Oh,
Wow,
my
can you believe that?
God.
Wow. Anyway, but yeah, I made it through. Yeah.
So can we get an update? How is everything going?
Well, recovery efforts are happening. You know, here at Penland, there was a lot of tree damage and some building damage that's being repaired. And then, of course, as you know, poor Spruce Pine was flooded pretty badly, and it's cleaned up, but it's going to take years to get businesses open again. And so right now, there's still a lot of debris cleanup on the roads, you know, so a lot of dump trucks filled up with branches and trees and whatnot. Anyway, it's still kind of a mess. It's going to take a few years, but people are hopeful and resilient, and yeah, it's just going to take a while to recover, I guess.
How was your house and studio?
Well, I was so fortunate to have no flooding where I live and only minimal damage to my house. There's a hole in the side of my house where a tree branch blew into it.
Whoops.
Oh, that's still damage.
I know, right? And then I had a lot of tree damage because I think a little funnel cloud or something came through. So I now have a full sun yard, but I'm embracing my my pollinator garden and maybe my vegetable garden coming up. So I was really lucky compared to a lot of people. Yeah, but my studio's fine, so I'm so fortunate.
Good. We're glad. Listen, would you please tell the wonderful audience out there like a little 411 about who you are in terms of what cone you fire to, what kind of work you make?
Sure. Well, I live in Sprucepine, as I like to call it. And I work mid-range with mid-range stoneware like cone 6, cone 7. And my work right now is it's not really functional. It's a lot of screen printed patterns and images on slabs of clay that I construct into these kind of floppy pots, as I call them. And they're brightly colored typically, and they're fired in the soda kiln, soda light, as I call it. Like not a lot of soda blasting. It's just enough to like kiss the surface. So that's what I make. Yeah. And I do, I teach here and there. Like I've done workshops. I'm fixing to visit Harvard Ceramics in March. That'll be fun.
Soon.
So exciting. And I did that makerspace thing at NCECA last year. Oh my word, with thousands of people. I had no idea.
That was awesome. I remember walking by that room and it was jam packed. I'm like, what the hell is happening in here? This must be like 5 different things. And there's little Susan up on the platform, and you had everyone's attention. It was awesome. It was so scary. I had to focus on just the front 2 rows of people and just power through. But
so anyway, so yeah, that's what I make. Yeah. And then I work at Penland School, of course, as the clay studio coordinator and taking care of the studio, ordering the clay, and working with the studio assistants and the amazing instructors that come through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody has been to Penland and has heard Susan's impassioned plea for acquiring the passion for mopping that she holds.
Right, exactly. Yes. Cleaning is my other art form, and I am passionate about mopping. Yes. That is very true.
We've all taken it back to our own studios for sure. Yeah.
Well, good.
Well, so we've talked a lot about in the last couple of months about changes with materials and, how that's been impacting people's work and glazes and what have you. I mean, I can imagine you have had to encounter, and not to add the fact that your major supplier was impacted, of course, by Hurricane Helene.
That's right. Highwater was flooded out and is no more. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, still not open.
Yeah. And no word. And the rumor is that they probably won't open, but I don't really know. I don't have any proof on that. So we're just going to have to piece it together from other suppliers in the region and get it together. Yeah.
Well, and it's such a center. I mean, spruce pine, I think we mentioned we did one episode on the hurricane. That's also the center of Minspar.
Oh, right.
Spruce pine. And there's a major quartz mine that has nothing to do with ceramics quartz, but it's actually even more important because it's a high quality quartz they used to make crucibles for semiconductors. I think last I heard, Minspar's back up and running, but those are right there, literally in mine as well.
That's exactly right. I live right across the street from one of the Quartz Corporation mines, and they were impacted. That's for sure. Yeah, but they're back up and running.
The mines are hard because when they flood, they often don't have any drainage. And so getting water out if it fills up is a huge problem.
I bet. Yeah.
So because you're not using, you're using the kiss of the soda kiln as your outside surface, you're probably not struggling too much with like your glazes, but you're using a lot of, underglazes, but also you have slips that you prepare, right? And
exactly. Yeah, that's right. Just a lot of colored slip. And it's just a base white slip recipe that does have custard spar as one of the ingredients. So obviously I have to figure that one out.
Did you send that to us?
I did, yeah. But here at Penland, we have our dry materials closet that I refer to as the dry materials museum, because some items have been there for so long. And so we do have 2 antique bags of custard spar living there. But obviously, but I have my slip base, which I actually weigh out. And then I weigh out the mason stains to that to make my colored slip. So that's really basically what I'm using. And then, of course, underglazes. I print with the underglazes because they print better than the slip does. The slip can be too, I guess, gloopy or just too, I don't know. The particle size is too large. So that's really what I'm doing. I don't use that much glaze. For like the liner, I use the Kitten Clear, which I'm sure, you all know about. It looks good in soda. Who knew? So yeah,
that's
what I do.
great.
Yeah.
Don't give Kathy too much credit.
Oh, shush. No, oh my God, Susan, we had a Meredith host on, and she talked about this entire kiln load of Kittens Clear covered stuff that just like went totally south. And I felt like such a sense of responsibility, even though it was created 25 years ago.
You got to apply it thin. You got to apply it thin. That's the number one rule.
Susan, you do.
Yes.
That's right.
It's written on the bucket here in the studio. Apply thin. So yeah.
Well, I want to know more about your kiss of the atmospheric kiln. Are you adding soda yourself? Are you waiting for residual soda? Are you amending your soda for the lower temperatures?
Well, I am adding soda, but only like 1 or 2 pounds. I'm firing here at school, of course, so the kilns are pretty seasoned already to begin with. So I'm just I spray it in with an industrial sprayer. I dissolve the soda ash in the water. I mean, it's nothing fancy. So that's usually it's just about 2 pounds per firing. Yeah.
A dusting, a kiss.
Exactly. I often refer to it as soda light. That's LITE, by the way. Soda light. Yeah.
Fewer calories, less filling.
Exactly.
Is the local grocery store ever out of salt because you guys are firing?
Yes.
It happened all the time in Alfred. It's like, oh, there's no salt. I guess somebody's doing something today.
Exactly. That's true. I've cleaned out Ingles. I've cleaned out Walmart. I've even driven to other towns to buy salt for other firings. So I know all about that.
Oh, that's great. So just to not that I want you to tell some,
gossip, you mean?
Yeah.
But we're here for the horror stories. Let's be honest.
I mean, it doesn't sound like you have many, horror stories to tell. So have you had to come across anything that was challenging?
You mean like in the making of my work, you mean? Or like just in life?
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be in life. I mean, absolutely. You work with so many different people. I mean,
oh my gosh, yeah.
What you have to do in juggling all the different artists that come and in your work as a coordinator, I can't even imagine how you
And I
juggle
hear
it all.
this woman, Kathy, who comes like almost every year.
Oh
She's
my
such
gosh.
a pain.
I mean,
She is just
such a
so
diva.
high maintenance. So high maintenance. Yeah. It's crazy. The poor assistants are just in tears in my office, within the first 24 hours. You just got to power through. You just got to do it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I have met so many fascinating artists here at Penland, that's for sure. And there was a naked instructor one time. This was a long time ago in like 2009. This instructor we call him Naked on the Knoll. Like he and his girlfriend at the time and some other people in the class, they covered themselves in clay slurry and went out onto the knoll. The knoll at Penland is like the field that's right there outside the dining hall, I guess. It's like the center of campus. Anyway, so they were out there performing some kind of like dance kind of situation, naked, covered in the clay, and they were photographed by the photography teacher at the time, who was a little bit weird.
Oh, interdisciplinary. Great.
Indeed. Yeah. And the teacher asked me, he's like, Susan, what are the rules about getting naked on campus? And I was like, well, you take off your clothes and you're naked on campus. And he was like, no, we need to get permission from the deputy director to do this, right? And I was like, okay. So I went to the office and explained to our deputy director what was going to go on. And this instructor was really quite weird. Anyway, and Gary's like, well, y'all can do that dance, but you have to he needs to keep his business contained in a non-flippy flappy manner. And I was like,
non-flippy flappy manner.
Or a non-flippy floppy manner, excuse me. And the receptionist who was working at Penland at the time was outside just laughing to herself as I left the office. But this teacher did not have his business contained in a non-flippy floppy manner out there on the knoll. And it was so wild. And anyway, so we often refer to him as the Naked on the Knoll instructor, and I often thank teachers for wearing their clothes the whole time that they're here and not being naked. And I should mention the students were firing the wood kiln at the time. It was at the very end of the concentration. So the students are working, right? And their teacher is out there naked on the knoll. That has not happened.
Well, at least they didn't get any third-degree burns in uncomfortable places from stoking the wood kiln.
True that. True that, and they were covered in the clay, so they weren't sunburned where the sun doesn't shine anyway. So that happened.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
and then of course there's always the firings that don't go so well because people come to Penland and they've never fired the kiln before, and all the classes work is in the kiln. It's a one-shot deal, and there's too much body reduction, or it never gets to temp, or just whatever happens. So that happens not all the time, but every once in
a lot. Yeah. I mean, that idea of that you can, if I fire gas kilns, let's say, that I can fire any gas kiln. But I mean, you have so many different kilns to choose from, and then, they haven't fired it before, and a lot of the nuances, but you can't hold their hands. So
Right, exactly. Yeah. And just one firing is just not enough to really learn the nuances, I guess. But students are pretty open-minded about that. I mean, brown pots, it's a good start, right?
It is so much pressure. I was teaching a workshop at Anderson Ranch this summer, and I do glazes. So we're firing every day. Like as soon as I can get in the kiln, we're firing and we're tweaking the kiln and all that. And there was a workshop going on of salt fire with Stuart Gare at the same time. And I got in 7 firings during the workshop, and they had one. And it was, if it goes bad, everybody is there's those sad faces on kiln and loading days. And for me, I got in that first fire, and it's okay, tweak this, tweak that. Okay, second fire, and go and tweak this, tweak that. And I'm talking to a studio for setting up workshop now, and they were like, "What do you mean you want multiple firings during the workshop?" I'm like, "I want to fire every day, every day." And
That's
well, we're
awesome.
used to just firing once.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. That's good. Yeah.
But the pressure, I couldn't handle the pressure. I can fail my way through a bad fire.
Have you ever had a case, Susan, where I know you have a lot of glazes, but each class, if I've taught workshops and the assistants are going to mix the glazes that I want to introduce to the students, have you ever had something go horribly wrong there?
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh.
Well, just recently, there's the glazed salad shooter. You put too much chrome in that, and it's just you just can't go back. So there's always that discussion about, okay, is it 0.25% or 2.5%?
Right.
So there's a lot of, it's not unusual for me to find towards the end of class the buckets of this we did not. I don't know what happened here.
We didn't need that. That's sad.
And we do have our hazardous waste barrel, which I refer to as the mystery glaze barrel. They just kind of get thrown out. But yes, we've had, and also, I'm not in that glaze lab all the time. It's not uncommon for cross-contamination to happen between two things, which is just human error,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, man. And I will say it's a lot easier just to buy a new kiln shelf. Just, if it's that bad, don't waste your time trying to grind. Just buy a new shelf and move on.
That is some therapy right there. That
absolutely.
Is, just coping mechanism.
Buy the new shelf and then just put that bucket aside and start over. Yep. Yeah. But we have a lot of glazes here because every workshop, it's a different palette for each instructor that comes through. And we have a lot of glazes that get left behind that are actually, they're just kind of here.
So what do you do with all of them? Do you just store them, or?
I try to sometimes the instructors will take home the leftovers because they use it in their home studio anyway. And why not just take it? Or sometimes students in the class will want whatever glaze it is because they can fire at home or whatever. But yeah, they live here. And I tried to pawn them off on other classes. We've got the winter residency here, and people, they're only here for 2 weeks and they don't have time to make Tomoku or whatever. So they can just use whatever we have here. And they're totally fine with that. So they do live here and they continue on for a while, Oh, well.
Sometimes years.
I know. And yeah.
Do you have one temperature you make everybody work at for workshops in general? Because that seems like that's dancing on a knife's edge if you've got 6 and 10 or 04.
We've got everything, low fire, mid, you name it. It's just across the gamut, and in one summer, it's just everything. So I do all the cone 10 stuff is kept upstairs in the upper clay studio. And then all the low fire stuff is downstairs and all the cone 6 stuff is on a separate table. So we do keep things separated and color coded, so people don't get confused on that. But it can be sometimes those 2-week workshops, there's 2 instructors, one's low fire and one's mid range. That's really confusing. And those poor students, so many questions. But like I say, just buy a new shelf, just buy the new kiln shelf. Don't even worry. Just take everything to the dumpster and then nothing happened. Yeah.
Coping with loss is such a thing that I really feel that people in ceramics need to get more comfortable with. As people that teach about glazes, we're always like, oh, well, should I reglaze this? Should I? And my answer is always like, yeah, just start again. You made it once, make it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I would say. I mean, it's worth refiring once, maybe, but after that, forget it. Start over. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy of just so passionate about all the time into that one object will keep you addicted to that thing that's just never going to work out in the long term.
Wow, yeah, that's deep.
I've definitely noticed that over the
deep, like
years.
A septic tank deep? Or...
No, like deeper clay deep, deeper clay is our downstairs hand building and sculpture studio. Like it's very thoughtful place,
It used to be upper and lower, and people didn't like that hierarchy, so it went to
it's upper and deeper.
Clay.
Yeah,
that's right.
Someone actually made us a deeper clay sign that hangs in deeper clay. So yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I was saying that I've noticed that over the years that people, students, and sometimes the instructors aren't teaching that expectation that you're not going to get it on the first time. And I had to have an instructor meeting myself for this semester, and like, you all need to just make something the first class, so that we can biscuit, so they can glaze something, and not wait till midterm to start getting into the glaze room, especially like when nobody, everybody's just getting a sense of like how to throw in the wheel. They don't want to leave the wheel now and go glaze. And I know you have that like on steroids with only having like a 2-week, how do you get people to stop and wrap it up,
It's hard. And students do have high expectations. You're absolutely right that they're going to make, a teapot or whatever in their first class. And of course, people can get really depressed about that. Like during concentration, the longer classes, maybe people don't advance as fast as they wanted to, maybe, or they realize that learning to wheel throw is actually very difficult. Yes. So managing expectations is a serious problem. You're right. I know that, a lot of the shorter workshops that we have here, people have given up that expectation for making things, kind of like everyone would take home just like a small tile, for example, or just the experience of having played around with whatever technique it was. So that's a good thing.
Great.
Yeah, but I know, but it's hard to manage. I know.
Cultivated. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is a luxury. People, hopefully should embrace those longer workshops. If you can make that as part of your life, for getting more immersive, getting more time to focus on it, because clay is process. Like it is that entire process that you have to go through. And it's really hard to squeeze it into a couple of, 3 days or 5 days even.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Matt did a 2-week workshop this past summer, and it's amazing the amount of work they put out. It was absolutely dumbfounding. Like wow. It was impressive.
Yeah, you can really, when you can absolutely just spend that time and have a great place like Penland where you can soak it in and make that your pursuit for that amount of time.
Right.
Although Rose,
absolutely.
I gotta mention to Rose, we got to watch out. We are surrounded right now because Susan and Kathy and producer Ben are all Florida gang.
We are.
That's
Go
true.
Gators.
That's true. We're all Gators. Yeah. We're all Gators. Yeah. How about that?
So we'll give you a minute to crow about how great Florida is. Us Alfred people, shut up.
I thought you were going to say, Matt, that you were surrounded with Susan and myself for Cone 6.
Oh,
right.
well,
And
I
don't
mean,
think I'm not going to bring that up. So,
go for it, do
Susan,
it.
I don't know if you listen to this podcast, but it's been brought up that perhaps Cone 6 isn't as, hardcore, let's say, as Cone 10 or,
Really?
in general, as good. I don't know if you've heard that, Susan. Have you heard that?
I've heard that, but I often think of that as some antiquated past that is so
Ooh.
2000, I mean, or
Oh.
I don't even know what era that would come from. I mean,
The O's, you mean? The O's?
Yeah, that's me going, oh, really?
oh,
Oh,
really?
really?
Yes. I don't know, man. I mean, Cone 6 is kind of where it's at as far as I'm concerned, just as vitrified, brighter colors, less energy. I mean, come on, you got to feel the love.
Actually, that one's a lie. That one I'll fight you on. The less energy is actually a complete and utter lie. It's all about heating rates, but
Gotcha.
colors I will give you.
Yeah.
Colors are
thanks.
one, because that's actually an interesting one. Stains, right? And you were saying how you've got your bases and a bunch of stains. If you actually go and look at the documentation for mason stains, they're only rated up to 2300 F, which is cone 8, and that they begin to decompose over cone 8. And so that's why the colors read as less intense during cone 10, because they're not intended for those particular colors. So you will get a brighter color palette, but it's about the failure of the stains and not the temperature itself that's doing it. If you're working with just oxides, the colors are exactly the same. So it's a stain, but a lot of people are doing highly decorative things with color and underglazes and slips. You will get a brighter color palette with the stains. That part is true. Everything else I'll fight you on.
Okay. Whatever. So Susan,
Okay, back to your therapy group, Kathy. Go ahead.
well, I was going to ask, to be in particular that she's soda firing, and you see a lot of cone 10 soda, and you do cone 10 or cone 6 soda. And just for those that may not be as familiar with that, do you see much difference? I know you talked about that you do a lighter soda, but how would you define a difference between the two?
That's a good question. It is the lighter soda, so it's less mucusy, less glossy, I guess, from that. But that's a good question.
Come from a
Good
soda fire
descriptor.
person, everybody.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's a really good question, because I want to say, I'm using mid-range clay. That's really the only difference, I guess. But that's a good question. I want to say no. There's really not that much difference between high and low in terms of that. Good question.
Okay.
Do you find any stains that don't work well in soda?
That's a good question as well. I want to say I always go for the lighter colored stains, like I prefer like a more pastel kind of palette for that, because I'm using the slips as like a background for the underglaze printed decals, I guess. But I haven't found any stains that don't work per se at that temperature. But it's interesting to know that, well, what Matt was just saying about the failure of the stains at a high temperature, I haven't experienced. I mean, well, yes, we've experienced that, of course, like pinks burn away and the lighter colors burn away. But the pansy purple is still kind of bluish purple, in that chrome 10 pink is still quite pinky at cone 6, 7-ish. So yeah, good questions.
That's what the intention is. So, with stains, what I always like to say is, people often think that stains are stable colors. I like to emphasize that they're stabilized colors. So they're in molecular structures that are less reactive. And that's what stains do, is that they float in glaze and slips, like icebergs, whereas oxides are generally going to be incorporated into the glass. And so they're designed to be inert, so they don't chemically interact. The problem with them at the higher temperatures is that they do start to break down and chemically interact, but they do it at different levels, because there's different molecular structures of stains. There's spinel stains and zirconium stains, and they'll interact with temperature differently. So some of them will hold their temperature fine at cone 10. Some of them will begin to shift their color palette, but all of them should be consistent at 8 or lower, that you should always get a consistent base color reaction. It does depend on the base that it's in. but that they'll definitely be more consistent to that. And the soda shouldn't have a major influence on it. Honestly, it's probably more of, does the kiln spike in temperature as you're going through, when you're opening up the ports and, you're getting air in there, does temperature bounce up and down? But it should be relatively consistent with staying at those lower temperatures. So there definitely is a benefit to that end.
So I have to say, I just got a good image of an iceberg and thinking of the little sailors like, watch out, there's Praesidinium coming.
Is that how you say it? Say that again, Rose?
That's how I've always said it. So I don't know if it's right. I don't know.
Wow. I would love to know the official name there. I've called it so
How
many
do you
different
say it?
Presidium. But it could be
Like a
totally
theater.
wrong. I don't know.
But you know what? I'm
The
also
Senor
the one that
Theater.
says rutile and rutile. So it's like, I'm wrong on a lot of things.
I will say no one should ever be shamed for pronunciation, because that just proves that they're reading, and that's what's important. So
That's
and
true.
it's fundamental. That's right.
That is
So
that's a great way. Yeah.
So we should note too that Susan is using silk screens when applying your patterns onto newsprint and onto clay directly, correct?
Right. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So how is it? Because I know now there are products out on the market that are being sold as underglaze printing inks, but you do it yourself. So how do you prepare slips and underglazes to be the right consistency to be able to pass through a silk screen and use your transfer
Yeah, those
techniques?
are pretty fine.
Well,
Fine screens.
yeah. Well, back to the whole process thing, and I should mention I'm not a real screen printer. Everything's trial and error. And I realize I have like the most inefficient way of working, I guess. The colored slips that I'm using, they're quite thick. They're nice for brushing, So there's that. And the underglaze, I've been using Amico underglazes for a while now, just because it's what I've always had access to, I guess. And so I'll dry the underglaze out. I'll just pour it into like a shallow plastic bowl, just pour the whole pint out, all $55 worth of it.
Wow.
Right? And yeah.
So you're not using red then, because that's more than that.
Well, actually, I do
worth
like the
it,
radiant
Amica.
red.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, so I pour the pint out. It's in like a shallow, just a plastic dish, and I leave it in my studio, and I let it dry out for a few days, and it gets crusty on the edges. Then you know that it's dried out. And then to that, I add just a scant teaspoon of the Speedball transparent extender base. Speedball is the big printmaking company, I guess, or business. So I just add a little bit of that to make it to make it more thick, I guess, to make it brush through the screen or squeegee through the screen really well. And I learned about that from Jason Burnett, of course. So that's what I do. And so that's how I thicken that out. And so yeah, that's how I do all of that. And then I'm printing on the newsprint just with a regular squeegee. Just I have my hinge board set up, and I can lower the screen down and just print. And then printing on the clay, I just print with that same dried out underglaze directly on the clay. But I should mention, printing on the clay, the underglaze is very, very thin, like it's like a ghost image almost. And so that's just a different line quality effect that I can achieve with that. Whereas the underglaze transfer that's on the newsprint, when I put it on the clay, it's quite crisp and bold, like it's a clear line. So I'm trying to get different line qualities, which, no one's really going to notice, right? The person using these pots, putting their earrings in this little dish that I've made or whatever, they're going to be like, oh, look at the line quality. They're not going to be doing that, Anyway, so that's what I do.
You never know.
That's true.
I serve food in Susan's work. Am I not supposed to? Is it just for earrings only?
No. You can do whatever you want, But anyway.
Great.
But yeah, there's a lot of process. Yeah.
That's a new one for me. I learned something today. I'm currently looking up the Speedball extender base. I haven't.
Oh,
I haven't heard of people
So
using that for
Speedball is
ceramics.
based in North Carolina, by the way, and they sell all those wonderful screen printing products that we all grew up with. The drawing fluid, the screen filler, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to figure out what it's made of. It just says acrylic, but I'm gonna look it up after we get out of here and try to figure
I
out.
remember back in the day, yeah, we used a lot of different things trying to find
Yeah.
what worked. Yeah.
Like I've experimented with like corn syrup, like adding corn syrup or whatever to like homemade underglaze, and but it's still
Wallpaper
printed really.
paste. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, wallpaper paste. That's what Forest Leach Middleton uses. So that's another option. I should mention all of these products do grow mold, like the wallpaper paste grows mold. And my yeah, but I just stir the mold right back in with it, and I just keep using it. I know it's organic.
That's a
It'll
good
burn out.
line quality, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. That's the secret right there. Yeah, is the mold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the wallpaper paste I had heard of from we do a lot of teaching on crystalline glazes, and our crystalline students in the UK, they all use wallpaper paste instead of CMC.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely, for their brushing medium.
For a good amount of time, it was just too hard to find it here, but now wallpaper is coming back in style, so it's gotten easier. But
I did not know that. Good to know. All right.
The rot is real, everybody. Oh my goodness. We used to keep a jar of CMC liquid around and in the studio, and it will look like a science experiment after a while. So yeah, a couple of drops of bleach in that will clear that up. But
oh, does it? But CMC has a shelf life, right?
it does. I mean, it's carbamethicellulose, so it's like a paper cellulose, what paper fiber originally was. And so it'll rot. It's a carbon-based material, so it'll rot no matter what and degrade over time. So but we would keep it around to add in a couple of drops to something when we were working, but it'll get nasty after not too long.
Yeah. Well, too, and the stuff we had in storage, that was a science experiment, definitely. Cool.
What's the weirdest thing you have in that supply closet, Susan? At
The
Penland?
weirdest thing? Oh man.
Do you have some uranium?
Oh, I don't, but Cynthia Bringle does. I know exactly where it is in her studio. It's under the
Oh
stairs.
my goodness.
Yeah. Oh man, we've got like this weird antimony that's been in our dry materials museum for ages. It's just there in this jar. I mean, should I hazmat it out? I don't even know. But we also have
This is
awesome
the place to ask.
I know, right? I mean,
Wonderful chicken seasoning.
Oh, perfect.
Do not put it on chicken. That was for humor intent purposes only, audience.
Oh
my gosh. I can just see the lawsuits now. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, but the cool things we have, there's like bags of oak mulgi clay that someone brought up, and also bags of dry Lizella clay, which is really cool for experimenting with slip making. So that's kind of nice that that's there. And then we just have so many mason stains, like a whole library of mason stains, I guess.
Tons.
And then just other weird things like the copper sulfate for the raku world, a lot of ferric fluoride, even copper sulfate chunks. Like I don't know where it came from. We have chunks of it, and would that be a raku thing? I don't even know.
Wow.
Anyway, they're all in the back. They're just hanging out. We also have a large container of volcanic ash, which is amazing. I can't imagine what that would ever. I mean, wow, volcanic
Like
ash.
from a particular volcano?
It's from Pompeii. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't even know. I'm joking.
Pumice, some people get addicted to, but it's just calcium, silicon, alumina. So like when we talk about our raw materials, like the sources sound really like exotic and crazy. I had a student once, and I love the student, don't think I'm poking at them, but they had come up with this glaze. They live out in Hawaii, and they're like, I made this glaze, and you can only make it with the volcanic ash from Hawaii. And I literally turned around and copied it with a frit. And I'm just like, yeah, no, it's still just silicon alumina.
But it sounds cool. It's
It does.
Hawaiian.
It sounds cool. But yeah, pumice historically is what most people call volcanic ash. So if you see a recipe calling for pumice, that's
And you could like use it on your calluses, take it off, a little bit.
We're soaking in it. Susan, thank you so much for being with us. I know you're super busy, so we really appreciate you spending this time with us.
Oh, well, thank you. What an honor. It was wonderful talking to you. I really had a great time. Thank you.
Oh,
well,
excellent.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, now we can't go. Susan, so if you don't know this, when Susan does her thing, we refer to it as floofing. Do you have the tale of the origin of floofing?
It sounds illegal in New England.
We're very
Damn
puritanical up
Puritans.
here.
Oh my gosh! So when I come to Boston, I shouldn't use that term. It's like a trade term, I guess. I just started using the word floof to describe floofing, which is like, well, it's both noun and verb. It's the actual decal that you're going to like transfer onto the clay. That is the floof, and then to floof is when you're like decorating your work. I guess I don't know. I have no idea.
Like you're floofing it up.
Exactly.
Oh.
But, I did Urban Dictionary it just to make sure that it didn't have any negative or any like weird meanings, and it didn't exist. So maybe I should trademark this word. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, we call our fuzzy cat Floofy, so
Oh, that's nice.
That's not that nice because he's a fluffy doofus. So he's
Oh.
floofus.
He's Floofus.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's the not smart one to choose live electrical cords.
Yes,
Oh.
he's gonna electrocute himself one day.
Oh no.
I like your floofing better.
Yes,
Yeah,
I like that.
we'll
one
go with
better.
that.
Yeah,
Oh good. Well,
Well.
thank you. Yeah. I should print my own t-shirt.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Hey.
Yeah.
Everybody would get one. Well,
Yeah.
until we floof again, Susan.
Yes.
Thanks, Susan.
Yes. What a delight. It was so nice talking to you. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's so
All
nice
right.
to talk to you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at ForFluxSakePodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system.